listenaminute.com. Studying. Love it or hate it, studying is one of the most important things we do in life. We all start school around the age of 4, and then it's study, study, study. Some of us are good at it and like it. Some people even become lifelong learners and study into their old age. I know one woman who's over 70 and is doing her 5th master's degree. Other people hate studying. Many people leave school at the age of 15 or 16 and get a job. They like the idea of getting money and not having homework. The truth is, however, studying is one of the best ways to make sure you do well in life. The more you study, the more qualifications you have, and the better job you can get. I really think everyone would love studying if they studied something interesting.
Section 4. You will hear a lecture about success in business systems. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. In the last few lectures, I've been dealing with business finance, but now I'm going to move on to business systems. And in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about what can go wrong when businesses try to copy their own best practices. Once a business has successfully introduced a new process, managing a branch bank, say, or selling a new product, the parent organization naturally wants to repeat that success and capture it, if possible, on a bigger scale. The goal, then, is to utilize existing knowledge and not to generate new knowledge. It's a less glamorous activity than pure innovation, but it actually happens more often, as a matter of fact. However, surprisingly, getting things right the second time is not necessarily any simpler than it was the first time. Now, there's been a lot of research into how companies can repeat their previous successes, and it certainly hasn't been confined to the United States. It seems that most large industries are trying to repeat their own successes and manage the knowledge they've acquired. But even so, it has been shown that the overwhelming majority of attempts fail. A host of studies confirm this, covering a wide range of business settings: branch banks, retail stores, real estate agencies, factories, call centers, to name but a few. So why do so few managers get things right the second or third time? Let's consider one reason for failure: placing too much trust in the people who are running the successful operation, the experts, shall we say. Managers who want to apply existing knowledge typically start off by going to an expert, such as the person who designed and is running a successful department store, and picking their brains. Now, this approach can be used if you want to gain a rough understanding of a particular system, or understand smaller, isolated problems. The trouble is, even the expert doesn't fully grasp the whole thing, because when it comes to complex systems, the individual components of the process are interwoven with one another. The expert never has complete access to the necessary information. And the situation's complicated even further by the fact that experts are usually not aware of their own ignorance. The ignorance can take various forms. For instance, a lot of details of the system are invisible to managers. Some may be difficult to describe, learned on the job, and well known by workers, perhaps, but impossible to describe in a way that's helpful. And there are some things that people know or do that they're not even aware of. Now, let's consider two types of mistake that can occur when a manager actually starts to set up a duplicate system to replicate a successful process. Firstly, perhaps he forgets that he was just trying to copy another process and starts trying to improve on it. Another mistake is trying to use the best parts of various different systems in the hope of creating the perfect combination. Unfortunately, attempts like these usually turn out to be misguided and lead to problems. Why? Well, for various reasons. Perhaps there weren't really any advantages after all, because the information wasn't accurate. Or perhaps the business settings weren't really comparable. More typically, the advantages are real enough, but there are also disadvantages that have been overlooked. For example, the modifications might compromise safety in some way. So, what's the solution? Well, I don't intend to suggest that it's easy to get things right the second time. It's not. But the underlying problem has more to do with attitudes than the actual difficulty of the task, and there are ways of getting it right. These involve adjusting attitudes, first of all. Being more realistic and cautious, really. Secondly, they involve exerting strict controls on the organizational and operational systems. And this, in turn, means copying the original as closely as possible. Not merely duplicating the physical characteristics of the factory, but also duplicating the skills that the original employees had. Reliance on a template like this offers the huge advantage of built-in consistency.
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
Track 52. Hi, Martha. How's the essay going?
Oh, hi, Carl. The essay, there's a lot of reading. It's difficult to remember all the different ideas and the different writers.
So, how do you keep up with it all?
Well, actually, I make a note of the writer's name and summarize their ideas in a notebook. It's very old-fashioned, isn't it?
It is a bit. Actually, I'm quite the opposite. I've downloaded some free software from the internet. It lets me save all the articles and e-books I get online and make notes on them. I like it because it's cheaper than printing everything. But what do you do, Enrique?
Oh, I'm afraid my note-taking system isn't as modern as that, and it's much more expensive. I print the articles I find online and I photocopy pages out of textbooks. Then I go through and highlight all the important information with a pen. Not very good for the environment, I'm afraid. What about you, Jenny?
I'm in the middle, really. I don't use special software, but I keep all the articles I read online in folders on my PC and make notes on them there.
Track 53. Hey, Leslie, are you ready for the exam?
Hi, Jen. I haven't seen you for weeks. Am I ready? I don't know. I've been revising really hard, but I can't remember anything at the moment. You know, I get ready for exams by planning a revision timetable. It helps me make sure I've studied everything on time. But just before an exam, my mind goes blank.
Yes, I know what you mean. I've been trying out a new technique for remembering facts and details. I heard about it in a psychology lecture. What you do is put together pictures in your mind of the different things you want to remember. It's usually better if you can make the pictures funny, like cartoons.
I hadn't heard of that. It sounds like fun. Do you do that too, Indira?
Well, I tried it once, but it didn't help me much. I remember things by hearing them in my head. I can't really study in the library when people are talking, because I have to be able to hear myself saying things over in my mind. It's easier for me to concentrate if I study at home, late at night when it's quieter. What do you do to remember things for exams, Mark?
I go to bed early the night before the exam and get up very early in the morning, like 5 o'clock, and then I read over my notes again just to refresh my memory. I know a lot of lecturers tell us not to do last-minute revision, but it works well for me.
Track 54.
Excuse me,
Yes.
can I take my phone into the exam if I switch it off?
Your mobile? No mobiles are allowed in the exam hall. You can put it in your bag, though.
Okay, but then what do I do with my bag?
Bags go in the lockers, down the corridor on the left. There are keys in the doors. Just lock the door and take the key with you. Over here. Look, have a look at the poster. When you've put your things away, go to the main door of the exam hall and show the supervisor your student ID card.
Oh, okay, I see. So I show my ID card at the door, and then when I get into the exam hall, I need to look for my examination number? Is that the same number as my ID card?
Yes, that's right. The same number.
So where should I look for it?
Your examination number will be on a desk.
Ah, right. Thank you very much.
No problem. Good luck.
Track 55. Hi guys. Is everyone set to study for the exams then? Does anyone have any hints about how to get ready for them? I'm not sure where to start, really. Any ideas, Barbara?
Well, Mac, there are lots of things we could do. I mean, we could start by looking at old exam papers, or we could go through all the lecture notes for each subject. What do you think?
I think it's better to go through this year's lecture notes first. I mean, the exam topics might have changed since last year. Do you agree, Jerry?
Yeah, I think you're right. The lecture notes will tell us what the main topics of the subject are. Do you think we could ask the tutors what the exam topics might be?
I think we could ask, and they might tell us roughly what to look at, but I don't think they'll tell us exactly what the topics will be.
I think it's a good idea to ask them, just to know what to focus on. So, what's next? What do you think about reading all the books on the reading list? Jerry?
I don't think that's a very good idea. We can't read all the books.
I think you're right. What I think we have to do is try to remember the most important details and arguments from the main writers and be ready to use them in the exam.
Yeah, okay. Then the next thing to do is look at old exam papers and see what kind of questions we might get.
Yes, that's where the old exams will help, looking at the type of questions.
Right. So, when we've worked out which topics we need to study and remembered the main ideas, we can look at old papers and write a few practice questions.
Yes, and that'll help.
CD 2. Track 1. Section 3. You will hear 3 students discussing exam techniques with their tutor. First, in the exam, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 4. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Morning, everyone. I thought we'd get together today and just talk about exam techniques. I'm sure everyone has different ideas about them. So, shall we find out what you do first when you get into an exam?
Check that you have the right exam paper?
It sounds funny, but students do actually answer the wrong exam paper sometimes. So check that it's your exam first. Then what?
Write your examination number on the answer sheet?
Well, it might sound obvious, but writing your examination number at the beginning of the exam can be a good idea. Apart from making sure the examiner knows who wrote the exam, can anyone say why?
It can help you relax?
Yes, that's right. Doing something easy like that gives you a chance to calm down. Right, so what do you do next?
Read the questions carefully.
Well, before you read the questions, what should you do?
Read the instructions.
Yes, you should read the instructions next. You need to know how many questions you have to answer and whether you have to answer all the questions or only some. What other important information do you need to check before you start?
How much time you have?
Yes, Jerry's right. You need to make sure that you know how long the exam is so you can manage your time properly.
Before you hear the next part of the conversation, in the exam, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 5 to 8. Track 2. Listen and answer questions 5 to 8.
OK, what do you do next?
Read the questions.
Yes, it's very important to read the questions, not just once, but several times.
I usually make a few notes when I'm looking at the questions. Sometimes a question looks easy, and then when you start writing, you realize that it's actually more difficult than you thought.
Yeah, but you don't want to spend too much time writing notes.
No, but it's a good idea to jot down a few ideas to see if you can remember the arguments for the topics you studied most.
Once we've decided, is it better just to start at the beginning and answer the questions as they appear on the exam, or should we start with the easy questions?
Well, I start with the questions that I know better and leave the ones I'm not sure of for the end.
That's what I do. But I still keep an eye on the clock, especially when the questions are all worth the same number of marks. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, in the exam you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 9 and 10. Track 3. Listen and answer questions 9 and 10.
Mac's right. If you write one very good answer, but it's only worth 30% of the marks, you still lose the other 70% on that exam.
So it's better to write our main ideas for a question, even if we don't have time to answer it properly.
Yes, absolutely. We can't give you marks for writing nothing. But if you give us your main ideas, we can give you some marks.
Oh, really? I wish I'd known that in my last exam. I spent all my time writing a long answer to one of the questions and didn't get round to the other two. I didn't understand why I got such a low mark.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. Luckily, my tutor explained it afterwards, so I never did that again. That is the end of section 3. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers. Track 6. Hi. This is our last lecture about business and advertising this term, and today I'm going to talk about shopping habits in different parts of the world. First, we'll look at who normally does the shopping. Yes, well, in the United Kingdom, about 75% of the food shopping is done by women. But this isn't the case everywhere. There are countries where up to 60% of men do the grocery shopping on their way back from work. And habits are changing, even in Western countries. For example, a recent survey showed that in the United States, nearly 50% of men shop for groceries. Now, let's look at where people shop. In fact, where people shop depends on whether they live in the city or in the country. As we all know, there are more supermarkets in the city and more markets and small shops in the country. So, as the population moves to the city to find work, more people are shopping in supermarkets than ever before. Track 7.
Hello, good to see you all here. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about a recent survey into men's and women's shopping habits. Before I start, I'd like you to look at the list of statements about men and women and see which ones you would expect to be true. Right? Firstly, let's look at the idea that women spend a lot of money on expensive shoes. Actually, this isn't true. In fact, women buy a lot of cheap shoes. Men, on the other hand, try to save money by buying special offers. What is surprising about women, though, is that they like shopping in expensive or exclusive boutiques. And it isn't true that they always make a shopping list when they go to the supermarket. We also expected to find that men would go to the supermarket after midnight to get their food cheaper, but this wasn't the case either. Then the third thing we learnt about women is that they like to shop in big department stores, which men don't like. They like to go shopping in specialist shops. Okay, how many did you get right?
Track 8. Section 4. You will hear the introduction to a lecture on consumer habits. First, in the exam, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 4. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, I'm going to continue last week's lecture by talking more about how people spend their money. First of all, I'm going to compare how people of different age groups spend their cash. You probably know that there's a lot of difference between what young people do with their money, how families spend their money, and what more mature people do. Secondly, I want us to think about what we imagine men and women spend their money on. And then, I'm going to look at male and female spending patterns and see whether we were right. Okay, to start with, let's divide the population into 3 sections. Let's say young people up to the age of 30 in the first group. Then let's put families in the 30 to 55-year-old group. So that puts adults over 55 in the mature group. Does that make sense?
Before you hear the next part of the lecture, in the exam, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 5 to 7. Track 9. Listen and answer questions 5 to 7.
Right, well, I found that the first group, that's young people up to the age of 30, mostly spend their money on clothes, music and entertainment. That's not really very surprising, is it? Although I must admit, I thought they might spend a lot on cars and travelling around. So, the next group is what I've called families, people in the age group from 30 to 55. Naturally, as I expected, this group spends most of its money on food, toys and trips out. But I was surprised to find that people aged between 30 and 55 spend most of their money on furniture and kitchen equipment. I suppose it's logical if you think about it. People are usually improving their homes at that age, and household equipment is very expensive. But they also spend a lot of money on electronic equipment, like video games for the children. Now turning to the third group, that's people over 55. I thought they'd spend their money on gardening tools and electronic equipment, but I was wrong again. People in the over 55s group spend most money on new cars and days out.
Before you hear the rest of the lecture, in the exam you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 8 to 10. Track 10. Listen carefully and answer questions 8 to 10.
So, what did we think about how men and women spend their money? OK. Well, we thought that young women would spend a lot on clothes and shoes, and that young men would buy more electronic equipment and cars. Well, when we look at the figures, we can see that we were right about the men. Young men spend twice as much as women on cars and computers. But, and this is interesting, we were wrong about the women. I was surprised to find that young women spend much more on beauty treatments than they do on clothes and shoes. So we'll have to think about that again. And there's another interesting fact about young women. It looks as though young women are much more concerned about their diet than men. We found that although young women don't spend as much as men on eating out, they do spend a lot more on organic foods than young men.
That is the end of section 4. In the exam, you will have half a minute to check your answers.
Exercise 3. Being involved in campus life. Listen to the talk and circle the correct letter and then fill in the missing information in the notes.
Good morning and welcome to our regular lecture on being a confident student. This series of lectures is organized by the Students' Union, and we want to help you to cope well with the life on campus. Today, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Ms. Diana Sheeran, who is the President of the Students' Union, and she has been kind enough to give up her time to come along and talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. May I say it's a pleasure to be here. Now, I know being away from home and having to look after yourselves can make you feel homesick and give you a hard time. So today I'm going to talk about the ways of making sure that you get involved in campus life. This may help you cope better with your study and life on campus. To become more involved in campus life, use your college's resources, which include places to go for help, people who can help you, and publications that can help you. Your instructors, academic advisors, counselors, department heads, resident advisors, coaches, and club sponsors are among the people you can ask for help. Become familiar with the services your college provides and know where to get them. The registrar's office answers all questions about records and grades. The Career Center can help assess your interests and skills. The Guidance Office offers help with course selection and scheduling and may offer personal counseling as well. Learning labs and libraries provide equipment and learning resources to help you improve your skills and meet course requirements. The Financial Aid Office handles questions about fee payment, scholarships, loans, grants, and jobs available on campus. If you need more instruction than you are getting in the classroom, your college may provide a tutor.
Exercise 4. Living in London. Listen to the second part of the talk and write down the prices in the boxes provided.
In London, accommodation is another very expensive thing. You would pay about £40 a week for one room. If you want to rent a one-bedroom flat, it will cost more. You would generally pay about £200 per week for it. A telephone call to another London number costs 50p, and posting a letter costs 40p. A loaf of bread is 40p, a bottle of beer is £1.50. Very few international students will have their own washing machines, so it is likely that you will have to do your washing at a laundrette, which is a place where washing machines are provided for the general public. Here are some prices for the use of a washing machine. It's £2.50 for using a large washing machine and £1.80 for using a small one. You have to pay £1.50 for using a tumble dryer, about £2.40 for a medium-sized packet of washing powder.
Exercise 5. Living in London. Listen to the last part of the talk and write down the prices in the boxes provided.
Now let's turn to clothes. It's difficult to find an average price for clothes because there is a big difference in the price range, depending on the kind of shop you buy your clothes in and what quality you buy. I've just walked around some local shops, however, and these are the prices I saw. A shirt, £12, a jacket, £45, a pair of jeans costs £25, a pair of running shoes costs £35, and a warm coat £50. A light raincoat is £39. A skirt is £23, and a day dress is £49. What do you think? Is London cheaper or more expensive than your city?